This is the new Mercedes-Benz E-Class, and in this video we will tell you what is good about it, what's not so good, how it is to drive, and if you should continue to buy this car blindly as people have in the past for its previous generations if you're looking at a proper luxury sedan. We'll also throw in bits and pieces of comparison with its competition from time to time, so do watch out for that. And now, before we get into the pros and cons of the E-Class, well, it'll be great if you could subscribe to our channel because it really helps with our growth. You're watching Carwale. Now, before we jump into the pros and cons of this car, here's a quick spec check. The new E-Class measures a little over 5 meters in length. The wheelbase at a little over 3 meters might not be class leading, but it is still longer than the outgoing car. The car we have here, the 200 petrol, comes with a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine. It makes around 200 bhp and 320 Newton meters of torque, and it is mated to a 9-speed automatic gearbox. It is rear-wheel drive only, and Mercedes claims it will accelerate from 0 to 100 km per hour in 7.5 seconds before hitting a limited top speed of 240 km an hour. As far as wheels and tires go, these are more comfort-oriented. 18-inch rims running 225 section tires with a high 55% aspect ratio. The adaptive suspension too is set up more for comfort than outright handling. The car uses steel springs but comes with selective damping system that constantly alters the damping forces to return a comfortable ride based on load, speed and impact. The first big positive for the E-Class has to be its cabin. From the many screens to the ambient lighting that runs across the length and breadth of the cabin, to the metal and wood finishes and the high-quality plastic all around, the E-Class feels expensive and elaborate. Plus, there's an endless list of features to get lost in. It has everything from wireless charging trays to a 4-zone climate control system and electrically adjustable blinds for the rear windows and the rear windscreen. It continues to feature the chauffeur package, allowing the rear passenger to move the front passenger seat without disturbing the driver. There's ambient lighting, motorized aircon vents that can be controlled digitally via the screen, an air purification package, a panoramic sunroof, and on the outside, there are those pop-out door handles and soft close doors. Now, the BMW 5 Series in comparison is quite close to the E in terms of fit and finish and cabin quality levels. It too feels rich and upmarket, but it lacks the feel-good features that the Mercedes has in spades. Now, when you're buying a long wheelbase car, you might as well get a really pampering package at the back, and that is another strong point for the E-Class, not just compared to what its competition offers, but in general. Yes, there are some things missing right up front. You don't have your own screen or a rear entertainment package, but that apart, everything else here is lovely. And let's start with what we get, or what the rear passenger gets in terms of features. I've got my own climate control zone. I've got everything that I touch and feel is of a high quality. So I've got these metal finishes, I've got faux leather, I've got soft grain plastic, I've got nice wood finish, and everything feels so rich and opulent that sitting here it seems like I have spent, or it's my money well spent here. Then of course, features. I get a rear seat that reclines. Even the headrest can be positioned or can be adjusted electrically. But that's not all. If I want more thigh support because I want to sit in a more relaxed fashion, I can just push it and it comes out, and then I can recline it all the way. And it makes for a really comfortable place to be in. These soft neck pillows or head pillows or whatever they're called, they're also nice to the touch and feel, and I could really see myself sitting here and spending my 2.5-hour commute back home just reading or sleeping, or so clearly this is a solid positive here. That apart, I get my electric blinds. Not just that, I can operate the rear blind through a button here, And I can also work the sunroof sitting right here, so I don't have to trouble or bother anybody else in the car. And if you're seated on the left, then you also have a button right here, which is the chauffeur package. So you press that and the front seat goes right up front, giving you even more space than I have. Now Minad is similar to my height and he's sitting in his driving position. You can see the amount of space I have for my knees, for my legs, my elbows, for my head. I mean, this is a tremendous place to be in, honestly. And lest I forget, I also get my own wireless charging pad. I have some storage spaces here and a little bit storage here as well, plus some space on the door. And Anand, you want to feel the rear?
Here?
Comfort?
No, it's okay.
5 का लाइफ एकदम बहुत मुश्किल होने वाला है.
अभी तो
हाँ.
बहुत कंफर्ट चला.
हाँ, बिंदास.
Just see if you can hear, मतलब.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So with your family, you won't go faster than this. Now you are still comfortable.
Yeah, man.
मतलब.
थोड़ा भी नहीं है, ना आवाज़ है पीछे, ना सस्पेंशन फील हो रहा है, कुछ नहीं. It's just that everything is, and movements are also very, like, I'm not being thrown around at all. It's just like fully planted at the back. It drove fast, my head was rolling if I were asleep, but this is again so soft, so it doesn't really, I mean, it's lovely. This is like very close to business class travel in that sense. Not first class, but certainly business class. The 5 Series scores on space as well, and it is quite sorted when it comes to ride quality. But again, it doesn't get the pampering features the E does. Having said that, we do prefer the BMW's fixed glass roof, which offers a nicer view than the restricted one the E does. Now, no matter where you're seated, traveling in the new E-Class is a comfortable and pampering affair. The seats, front and back, are large, cushy, supportive, and you feel at home in them instantly. Then there's the ride. It's like a train. You can hear the wheels going over the joints, but you can barely feel it. In the E2, you can see the bumps, the ruts, and the surface changes coming at you, and you can hear the tires and suspension dealing with it. But inside the cabin, in your seat, it is nowhere as pronounced. Now, we won't call the ride plush, but it is pliant, well-damped, and very comfortable. More importantly, it doesn't feel brittle, so you don't have to baby the car over poor roads. There's also a good sense of space about the E's cabin. The large windows and the panoramic sunroof help, as does the light-colored interior. Overall, it leaves the occupants feeling relaxed over longer journeys. Adding to the less taxing experience of travel is the large boot. Now, there is no split and fold option for the rear seats, but the boot is large and handy enough as is. Across generations of the E-Class, the one thing that is very obvious when you get into the car and sit is that the driver's seat in relation to the dashboard is always set slightly high. So you have a very clear and uninterrupted view of what is up ahead. That hasn't changed on the new car either. Now, I'm sitting in the lowest possible position and I pulled the steering really close, but even then, I have a great view of what is ahead. Not just that, there are other things that make the new E quite easy to drive. Take the steering, for instance. It is only 2 turns lock to lock, and that means there is very little effort involved when you have to park the car or you have to make 3-point turns. But then again, you don't really have to make too many 3-point turns because the turning circle on this car is also quite tight, surprisingly tight, and this is a long car, but even then. Then there is the heft of the steering. It's just enough for it to not feel heavy or tiring or tiresome to use, but enough to give you that reassuring feel that it is not completely artificial. So there is some amount of involvement there. No, it's not brimming with feel, it's not a sporty steering, but I think the balance there when you're looking for a car that's meant to take you around in luxury and comfort, it's a good balance there. Then you've got the engines. Now we have the petrol, you've got a diesel as well. And this petrol comes with a 48 volt hybrid system. It's a turbocharged engine, and the torque is laid quite thick and quite flat. And that means you don't really have to work this engine, you don't really have to rev it. And that again makes it quite easy to drive, because all it needs for you to be able to get to highway speeds, or even when you want to overtake somebody in the city or on the highway, is little prods of the throttle, and it gathers enough speed, enough momentum to take you, which is at legal speeds, not too high. But of course, if you decide to rev it, it's then that you realize that this engine is not one that enjoys being revved a lot. It likes its low, it likes its mid-range performance, and that's where it feels the sweetest or the best. And I think that reflects in the handling of this car as well. It's not set up to be sporty, so when you start pushing it, you can feel that it rolls around a lot, and then the amount of connect that it has with the driver is very limited, and so you don't enjoy that part. But I think that would be missing the idea, because this, with its long wheelbase and all that, is a great car to comfortably travel in. It's a very easy to drive car if you choose to drive over the weekends or daily to work as well. Of course, the light steering, the engine character, the visibility, all these things help a big deal.
The 530i is a nice car to drive as well, easy on your senses and comfortable to live with. However, it too is focused on comfort instead of driving dynamics, and that robs it of some of the BMW-ness and uniqueness as a result.
The final positive for the new E-Class is its ground clearance. Now, I know it doesn't look like much, and this is a long wheelbase car, but as it happens, it did not scrape anywhere in the time we had it, and we also took it a little bit off-road to come to this photography location. So a car like that, which doesn't scrape as easily, is actually very good news. Now, one of the biggest cons or negatives of the E-Class in my book, and we've said that in the past as well, and the interesting thing is that that's not really going to affect people buying this car or not, is that lack of emotive nature in this car, be it design, be it the engine options. It's very staid in that fashion. It'll do what you ask of it, and it'll do it well. It's more like a tool than something that you look forward to. What I can think of is, let's say this is more like an Apple Watch. So you're not really excited about looking at it every day or what it throws up. You're just looking at it for information. Compare that to, let's say, an analog watch, which every time you look at it, you'll find some detail that interests you. You might like it, you might not like it, it might bring a smile to your face. And that sort of thing, I think, in cars is necessary. Again, like I said, it's not going to make much of a difference for those buying the E-Class, because it does what it's meant to do really well. But that touch of design flair or a better engine option, just for those who are more interested, would have been a nice add-on.
This is where the BMW 5 Series scores. You might like the way it looks or you might not, but you can't miss it. And buying one will always be a conscious choice, your choice. Buying the E-Class in comparison is more like going with the crowd.
A clarification before we proceed further. Now, when we shot this video, Mercedes hadn't launched the E-Class, and then when they did, they of course launched it with the 200 and the 220D, but they also launched it with the E450, which honestly I had no idea about. Now, when you consider that our negative on the E-Class is slightly diluted because of that, because the 450, it's an inline petrol, it makes 375 horsepower, it's got 500 Newton meters of torque, and the car itself comes with four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. So clearly, if you are enthusiastic about driving, chances are the E450 will meet that criteria, but we haven't driven it. And so this is one clarification we wanted to make before we proceed further. And now to the other negative. The other negative, and again we're nitpicking here, and like the previous negative, it's not really going to change your buying decision about the new E-Class, is the fact that Mercedes has thrown the kitchen sink at the E-Class in terms of features, but then it's also missed out on some crucial ones, like ventilated seats. Why wouldn't Mercedes offer that, or HUD? And then also when it comes to the panoramic sunroof, we prefer the one on the BMW 5 Series, the new one. Of course, it doesn't open. This one opens not completely, just half of it. But that one doesn't open, but you get that whole expanse, which you can enjoy a lot more. Here, it's smaller and you've got a bar running across, so we prefer that. But yeah, like I said, the negatives on this car are completely non-decision making in that sense, or it will be for fewer people. Overall, it's a well-sorted car, but yes, there is room for improvement, and I guess that's what we've highlighted here. So now to put our thoughts together about the new E-Class, some really strong positives for the car: great in-cabin ambience, lots of features, lovely rear seat experience, and even traveling in the car in terms of how the ride is, how quiet the cabin is. So no matter where you're sitting, it makes for a very comfortable travel companion. The ground clearance too, which was surprising because we took it to places where we thought it's going to scrape, but it didn't. And so that's a strong positive, especially for a long wheelbase car. Now, when it comes to negatives, again, like we said in the past, these aren't really rejection factors, at least not for the majority, but some of you might want to know about it and might decide whether you want this car or not. Of course, it's not very emotive in terms of design or engine options. It's more toolish in that fashion, so you're not really buying into that aspiration. It's just something that works for you. And the second thing is the lack of a couple of features. Again, this is nitpicking, like we said in the past. It's not really a rejection factor. It's not going to really change your decision. But if Mercedes had thrown in those leftover features as well, then it would completely reset the goalposts for the segment. And honestly, we thought the new 5 was a very strong, very good car, but I think the new E-Class completely changes the game.